Now, at least 17 people have been killed as popular unrest has flared across Iran over the death in custody of a Kurdish woman, Mahsa Amini. A rights group said the death toll was almost twice as high. 22-year-old Mahsa Amini was detained for violating the country's dress code more than a week ago. She died on Friday in hospital after being in a coma. Police deny any wrongdoing and blame her death on a heart attack. Women have been cutting their hair and burning their headscarves in defiance. The protests have spread to over 80 towns and cities now. Security forces have fired at crowds with tear gas and water cannon. Well, for more on these protests, let's speak now to Arise Middle East analyst Dr. Saul Zadka, who is monitoring developments from London. Good to see you again, Dr. Zadka. This is clearly a tragic case, but why, though, has it provoked such widespread anger and protests?
Charles, the news from Iran in recent hours are very dramatic. The protest has spread into about 70 different cities. Cars were torched, police stations were set in fire. And when I spoke to a few Iranian exiles in Europe, they told me this is a game changer. Fear has gone. And they were referring mostly to the fact that during those demonstrations, the protesters were attacking security forces. 4 of them, members of the paramilitary organization loosely linked to the Revolutionary Guards, the Basij, were killed they were shot and stabbed by demonstrators. And this is a big change from previous protesters. And what triggered the entire protest movement was, of course, the suspicious death of Mahsa Amini, who apparently was beaten up by the morality police. And this ignited a great deal of protest, first and foremost among the people who belong to the Kurdish minority in Iran, about 9 million in number.
And Dr. Zadka, after several days of Iranians protesting against the death of that young woman in police custody, does it look like the authorities are coming clean about what happened to her?
The authorities are adamant that she had a heart attack before that. Her father, Amjad Amini, denied it. He said there were no pre-existing medical conditions that could have provoked her death. And he directly accused the authorities of trying to prevent him from seeing the body beforehand. What I can see in the streets of Iran is that the authorities are quite panicking, because it seems to me that they cannot control the angry people in various cities without shooting them, without using live ammunition. And so far, about 31 of the protesters were killed. 15 of them belong to the Kurdish minority.
And is it that one issue, that single issue of the woman dying, that's bringing all these people together in their quest for change?
Absolutely, because it was boiling over under the surface for quite some time. It so happened that Mahsa Amini died in Tehran during a visit to the capital, but there were a simmering anger among many young people, especially the students in the campuses, who never approved of the regime from the outset. And they were also led by women who could not tolerate the fact that when Ibrahim Raisi came to power as the new leader of Iran, he issued a kind of a fatwa that increased the punishment for women who displayed anti-hijab protest online, not to speak about trying to violate the compulsory head cover in the public domain. And this anger started once it started to come to power. It could be that this kind of a revolution will go down as the revolution of the women in Iran.
That's actually a very crucial point that you just made, because I understand that they've shut down the internet, the authorities, in a bid to try and stop these protests. But it seems as if a big mega movement is being formed, led by women.
Exactly, and not only that, the authorities try to limit access to social network by actually even restricting the internet in most cities. It is also that the protester managed to darken some of the government websites, something that hasn't happened before. So they have some kind of power to curtail the government sheer control of social network by saying to the regime, if you do that to us, if you try to restrict our access to Facebook or Twitter, we would not be able to let you run your own cyber activities. So it looks to me, although we've been there before in previous protests, that this time it could be slightly different, simply because the people are not afraid of the security forces. And many of them are tearing down or shredding posters of the supreme leader or even of Qasem Soleimani, the former head of the Revolutionary Guards, who was assassinated 2 years ago by the Americans. It seems to me that something has changed in Iran. The barriers of fear were broken.
Meanwhile, of course, people being shot at and the crackdown getting more violent. Dr. Saul Zadka, a RISE Middle East analyst, was talking to me there from London. He's monitoring developments in Iran. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Zadka.